The Jeff Cameron Show joining me. I'm so lucky to be here. I'm joining them. It's Tom Lang. It's Jeff Cameron. They're on 93.3 FM, 1 to 3 o'clock throughout the week in Tallahassee, as well as Warchant TV Live. This is the warchant.com original Top 40. Jeff's letting me. We did a little rock, paper, scissors behind the scenes. I took him now. I just went with scissors the whole time. So I get to quote unquote drive us. Hit the thumbs up button. We certainly would appreciate that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me here. I know you guys have been totally busy with everything with Link Jarrett. That's an awesome interview. Everybody be sure to check that out. So a good get from you guys. But we're here to talk football. We get it, everybody. We are now just outside the top 10. We are now picks 11 through 15. Pop them up right there on the screen. We're not going to even string it out, Jeff. We're just going to get right to it, man. There it is right there. Kevin Knowles, Akeem Dent. We got a little bit of everything in this one. Who stands out to you in this five guys that we've got popped up on the screen right now?
Well, I think I get most excited, frankly, probably just because he wasn't on this list a year ago and we didn't see him. Trey Benson at running back, you see at number 12 right there. Trey's a guy that I don't want to speak for you, Aslan or Tom, but I think for most of us, and that includes a lot of Florida State fans, we weren't real certain about in terms of the offer and to bring him in coming off an injury. With a running back, you're worried about any lower body injury, obviously. And so you thought, well, what are you getting here? You already felt pretty good, at least in terms of the running back room, and you were bringing another guy in. But, man, to me, he really popped in the spring. I thought he had that nice combination of both size and speed. He's a guy that I think seriously upgrades the room. I think that gives them a lot of versatility, and I think he could be a really impactful player on this offense right from the get-go. So he's the guy of this group that stands out. I also think Aslan and Tom, we're at the place now where we're down to the nitty-gritty of the best players on this team. You're not going to get a huge amount of discrepancy at this point about whether a player is 11th or 15th. You're not going to get too many moments like you were earlier in the top 40 countdowns where you might see, I have a guy at 11, you have him at 28th, or I have a guy at 13th and you have him at 36th. When you get down to this grouping of players, these are all guys, for the most part, that already have had a huge impact on this team, guys that are either starters or going to be starters, or guys that certainly have to emerge and continue to improve their play. So Trey Benson's the guy that stands out for me because I think, seeing him come over from Oregon, he's got a chance to be the starter and a chance to really change the dynamicism of this offense.
That said, though, I mean, I think I just shaded like you and Ira because I kept seeing you guys talking so much about Benson. I got Benson at 22nd just because I'm the guy that always feels a little bit leery about guys coming off injury. I know he's 2 years removed now, but going into preseason camp last year at Oregon, he's like, yeah, man, I'm at 99%, and he didn't really get to see the field a lot. They limited him in this spring. I like Trayshawn Ward. I think I like Trayshawn Ward maybe a little bit more than you guys on the panel, but then the middle is always struck nice in the moderate wing of the warchant.com party is Tom Lang, and you've got, I think, Trey kind of between Jeff and I, rather. Jeff's got him at 7 along with Gene. I got him at 22nd. How do you value Trey?
Yeah, I had him closer to Jeff. I had him at 9, but I had Trayshawn right behind him on the list. So I think, this is going to be the two-headed monster. Lawrence Toafili is going to be your change of pace player. He's going to be the running back that you try to isolate matchups on. It's somewhat almost like a receiver, I think, at times. Obviously, the rail route he ran against Clemson is one of the plays of the year for Florida State. So Toafili's going to be in the mix. But just after seeing Benson look as healthy as he did in spring, I'm projecting that he's going to get a lot of run. And the other thing is, too, that what are you replacing? And you're replacing Jashaun Corbin, who is Florida State's short yardage back. They'd go to the Wildcat at times in his career on a 4th and 1, and Corbin would have to make something out of nothing. Here's a guy that you can turn to in Trey Benson in 3rd and 1s or 3rd and goals, and he should be able to help you convert a little bit more consistently than Trayshawn Ward. So I think he's going to be used in some more high-leverage situations. Might be a touchdown hawk sometimes on some drives, but I think it's going to be a two-headed monster with the two guys on this list in Benson and Ward.
Wanted to go down to 15 real quick, Jeff. Kevin Knowles, is a guy that I value. I think we all value. He's obviously in the top 15 right here. Do we look at him as merely a slot corner, or do we think he's like maybe nipping at the heels of a guy like Renardo Green, because we do feel good about Duke Cooper on one side? Do we think that Kevin Knowles can maybe be the number 2 corner? Or do we just, it ain't broke, we don't need to fix it, just keep him at the slot?
No, I'm excited about the possibility that he is the other outside corner there. I'm with you on that, Aslan. I think he has the tools and the ability to do so. I'm actually kind of rooting for him to do so. Nothing against Renardo Green, but I saw enough from Kevin Knowles last year to get excited about his potential in that role. So I kind of think that he probably does emerge as a guy to possibly do that. I think this is all part of what we talk about with the fall getting ready to get started and how excited we are about some of these position battles and some of the competition that Florida State has not been fortunate enough to have in the last several years. You know, part of, I think, Florida State's problem is a lack of depth and a lack of really good competition on a daily basis in practice. So when you've got guys that are capable of fulfilling more than one role and guys that are trying to hold down spots and maybe prevent that guy from taking their spot, then you create that level of intensity on a daily basis in practice and competition that you're looking for. I think we go into camp this fall with the possibility of seeing 5 or 6 position battles like that where there's a depth to it that we haven't had in some time. He's part of that with Renardo Green. I think there's a real possibility that he's the other guy.
Tom, is that something you might want to, maybe keep an eye on, or fans should maybe keep an eye on, is the fact that maybe Kevin Knowles does see some burn as the other opposing corner opposite Marion?
I think that's something to look for in the first couple of weeks of camp. Before spring, I talked to Coach Woodson, the position coach Marcus Woodson at Florida State, and he said that they were trying and they thought maybe long-term that Knowles could play in the outside, and what that would do would be to free up some of the other corners in the roster to play slot. It's a tough balance, though. So I think after a couple of weeks of camp, you're going to know one way or the other if they're moving forward with the experiment. Because if you're good at covering the slot, that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. It's a variety of skills that you have to bring to the table to play in the slot. It's not always a matter of that's your third best corner. You've got to cover tight ends. You've got to cover some speedy slot receivers. You got to come up and make plays against the run. And we know Kevin Knowles can get downhill and play against the run. I think it would be a boon to Florida State's defensive backcourt if you saw Knowles on the outside. Maybe that means that they found a versatile weapon to go along with Jamie Robinson to play closer to the line of scrimmage. But I don't think it's a win-lose situation. I think it's a win-win situation. No matter where Knowles lines up, it should be good news for Florida State.
The remaining 2 guys on this list to me are big-time surprises and pleasant surprises. Let's start at 13 with Kalen DeLoach. Jeff, you're a hard-hitting Lakewood Spartan, some little fullback, high back. Man, explain to me in this day and age what we will notice on the field if we have improved linebacker play. And I guess Kalen DeLoach part of those plans.
Yeah, so a couple of things here, Aslan. I have been so concerned coming into every season over the last 3 years about linebacker play because in today's football, if there's a mismatch in coverage in particular, they'll isolate those backers and get one-on-ones. And if you've got a weakness there, they'll expose that. And there's not a lot you can do about it. And in essence, what ends up happening is you end up having an extra defensive back, which we see a lot in football now anyhow. But if you have to put another guy out there who's basically a glorified defensive back and he's playing the linebacker role because you're getting exposed in coverage, well, then you get small and they run right at you and you got a real problem there. DeLoach emerged last year as a guy that I thought was serviceable to a guy that I thought was good, period. And now you bring in Tatum Bethune, who's a guy who's been uber productive, obviously, for UCF. You've seen him sideline to sideline. He diagnoses, he reads, he gets guys set up. I thought he was great in spring. Well, why do I bring him up? Well, now all of a sudden, DeLoach doesn't have to be that guy. He can be the 2, and he can really run and cover. He'll come up and hit you. That's where I thought he got most improved was in the run game. He was able to really play more physical than he had prior. Got a lot stronger. I think he looks like a better all-around linebacker, and now that allows you to slide guys down further down the roster, 3 and 4, to their proper roles. DJ Lundy is not an every-down linebacker. You don't want him out there play in and play out. And so with the emergence of Bethune coming over and DeLoach playing so well last year, he's now 2. Now Lundy slides down, and you can fit him in a little bit easier into a better role for him. So DeLoach, what a year he had. Second half of the season, I thought he was great. The Boston College game, for anybody wondering, go watch the tape of that game. He's taking on double teams. He's still making tackles in that game. That's a physical BC team, not a great BC team, but a physical one, and he matched that physicality.
Tom, he's probably a pretty good poster child for patience, right? I mean, because he comes in that 19 class. We quickly forget about him because he doesn't get on the field, and now he's blossomed, kind of citing some of the games that he played in well from Jeff there. Is he a guy that you believe in? Kalen DeLoach will be able to bolster the defense in 2022?
Yeah, again, because of what we saw in November. Absolutely. If you look at the Boston College game, that has a lot more of downhill physicality to it. There was a play against Florida in Gainesville where he has an interception that all that is instinct and preparation. That's somebody who is no longer thinking on the field because they're prepared. They know what they're looking at. His interception requires to read the play before the snap, read the quarterback's eyes, and go make a break on the ball. These sound like simple things, but we know as Florida State fans or Florida State observers that they aren't simple because they haven't happened around here a whole lot recently. And the patience has paid off. I think he's going to be a valuable member of that rotation. That's why he belongs squarely in the top 15. And I think that's why there's a common thread between he and Akeem Dent, who's number 11 on the list. These guys are late bloomers, there's no doubt, but it looks like the development game is stepping up at Florida State. So that's obviously a positive. And these are two players that are going to be big parts of the defense in 2022.
You said it there, man. Akeem Dent. I gave up on him. I'm not going to lie. I gave up on Akeem Dent. I know he was a 5-star. He's a guy that Corey, bought a lot of stock in and was kind of sweating for a little bit. But now he's the guy that I kind of have like irrational confidence in, Jeff. He's a guy that I have number 7 on my list. I just hope that he can become that kind of ball hawking safety that really makes quarterbacks think twice about pulling the trigger on certain plays, on certain passes, in certain windows. And we saw it too. That's such a big part of it too. So much of this is projection and what we hope we'll see from guys, which I put him at number 7. There's a little bit of hope, but man, we saw him make plays in the spring, and we heard some really good things about him from the coaches. So I'm quite high on Akeem Dent. What do you think about that? I mean, could you imagine that we'd have him as high as 11 at any point in 2020 that we'd have him on the list 2 years later?
No, I'm with you, Aslan. I pretty much had written him off as well, and now I'm downright giddy about the play you see from him, the physicality, the instincts, and that's a position. If you think about, you pair him, Jamie Robinson, and those guys, you feel really good about for Florida State. There haven't been many position groups, and obviously Akeem Dent's a free safety, but there haven't been many position groups where you feel really good coming into a season where you go, you know what, I'm going to set it and forget it. I feel good about those guys. Well, I do on that back end, and we've been disappointed, but I love the idea of Akeem Dent teaching perhaps a Sam McCall and guys like that how to play the position. I see we've been disappointed because we had a lot of hope that Travis Jay was going to emerge at some point there, and that hasn't happened. So for me, Akeem Dent is one of those guys that we've gone from having really little to no hope, or at least there was wild inconsistency and frustration, to feeling very good about the season he's about to have, the kind of money he's about to make himself.
Is he a linchpin of sorts, you think? Obviously, Jamie Robinson's a really important piece, Tom, but how important could Akeem be for this secondary to maintain that good play we saw in the second half of last year?
Well, sometimes free safeties are considered to be, and I know this is not a good word in football, but the softer of the two between the free safety and the strong safety. That doesn't describe Akeem Dent. No. I think one of the characteristics that you're going to see from other players based upon what they've seen from Akeem Dent is they might short arm a ball or two over the middle if it's not thrown perfectly where it needs to go. I'm not going to go so far as to say he's an enforcer, but he is a physical presence in that defensive backfield. And listen, guys, make it a clean sweep. There were some loafs last year that I saw from Akeem Dent earlier on in the season. I thought, oh, man, where's Shaheem Brown? Where's somebody else? Put somebody else in there. Let's go and develop those players. But Akeem answered the bell. Another player who had a good back half of the season. Nobody had a good September. They were 0-4. But Akeem Dent and Jamie Robinson, to me, that's among the top groups in the entire roster, on the entire roster, where you're like, yep, set it and forget it. Those are your guys. We'll see who battles out for backup reps. But it's just unbelievable how the script has flipped for this particular player in his career. And I'm like you guys. I'm looking at the list of everybody's individual picks. Akeem Dent's highest pick is somewhere around 14 or 15. Everybody knows where it is right now in the defensive backfield. Jamie Robinson is a force. Akeem Dent is also a force.
Some pretty good players are on your screen right there, everybody. Those are pretty good players. You feel good about them. All right, gentlemen, we appreciate it. Next time, top 10, it'll be the A squad will roll out here. We'll have Ira and Corey joining you. I'll step away, but we appreciate you guys hopping on with me. Appreciate it. Jeff, Tom, thanks, man.
Good to be with you, brother. Always